Okay, it's rap pack to my pulse flat. We keep it real, no false rap. I got 4 cars and they all black. Got 4 bras and they all that. We call that ballin'. Doing this is my calling. Flow is so appalling. My phone off and she calling. I'm like, yeah.
What's going on, guys, and welcome back to Nth-Level Entertainment, the most awesome series, comic book, and movie-related YouTube channel in South Africa. I'm Z the Entertainer, and today we're going to be reviewing Crisis on Earth X Part 4. Now, any of you who've seen this show will know that this is basically the final episode in the CW DC comic book crossover, and where basically we see the team finally getting to the last stages of their confrontation with their Earth X counterparts. So the episode starts off with the scene of Martin Stein still basically dealing with having been shot in the very last scene of the previous episode. We basically see him lying on the floor on a pool of his own blood, and he then basically doubles over and continues crawling to try to flip the switch on the breach that they were trying to get through to get back to Earth 1. It's a very heroic scene. Anyone who maybe would have made any predictions would have automatically assumed that this is basically Martin Stein's exit as a character from the show, because we actually see him courageously continue to crawl on the ground under fire, still determined to complete his mission. We even see Dax watching from the wings, very afraid for Martin Stein and screaming, "Gray, no, stop, don't do it." And then when he actually gets up to flip the switch, he gets shot about maybe 3 more times. But then he eventually gets the breach open, and the team manages to subdue the Nazis and stop the fire and actually rescue Professor Stein. At the same time, we see the Flash and the Ray still fighting Red Tornado, as they were at the very end of the previous episode. And they finally defeat him by actually combining their powers through Barry throwing a lightning bolt and the Ray emitting some sort of an energy beam to combine them to the two at the same time and actually fry the circus of the Red Tornado and put him out of commission. So after that, the team obviously escapes through the breach and gets back to Earth 1. We then see a very rare scene where all of the CWDC superheroes are on the Wave Rider all at the same time, including Team Tech, which is Cisco and Felicity and Mr. Terrific. Well, Mr. Terrific is technically no longer a part of Team Tech. I guess the same way Cisco is now that he's got powers, because he's also Mr. Terrific. But anyway, we see them basically on the Wave Rider. Now, the one thing that I was expecting to see in this moment was people like Mr. Terrific and Cisco and Felicity actually geeking out over the fact that they are on a time machine. Fair enough, Cisco did get on the time machine once in the previous crossover when they went back in time to see the past versions of the Dominators. But I would have expected more, especially from Felicity and Mr. Terrific. But in any case, I guess it was a bit of a dark scene, as they were busy dealing with Professor Stein's condition gradually getting worse from his gunshot injuries, and Jack's actually dealing with the emotional trauma of watching the other side of Firestorm meeting his demise. We then also realized that the only thing that was actually keeping Martin Stein alive up to that point was the fact that he was still connected to Jax through the connection they share as a result of the Firestorm Matrix actually bonding them together. We then also see Rory meeting Leo Snart in this moment, and he immediately assumes that he's a ghost or a vision or a hallucination that he used to see sort of at the beginning of season 2 when he was still dealing with Leonard Snart's death. Leo also shares to him that he had a version of Rory on his Earth as well. And because they were good guys, his Rory is the one who died, and he died saving cops. To which Rory responds sarcastically and says, "I died serving pigs? That doesn't sound like me at all," or something like that. So that was quite an interesting exchange between the two characters. We then also cross over to the evil villain team, also regrouping at their loss of Supergirl from their custody, and now demanding that they are going to basically engage the main superheroes one more time and demand that they actually trade Kara for them leaving their Earth alone. So obviously, Oliver then refuses this point blank on behalf of the entire team and says that they would rather fight than let her go peacefully. So this, of course, along with the death of Professor Stein, becomes that call to action, that emotional call to action that actually pushes them into battle. And we then see a fantastic, visually stunning, and amazing final battle sequence where all of the heroes are now head to head with their different counterparts. We get characters like Sarah and the other legends taking on, like, the ground patrol, the Nazi foot soldiers, and things like that. We see Barry and Eobard Thawne engaging in a super speed fight in amongst everybody, making everybody look as though they were standing still, as they were darting around, running up buildings, and so on and so forth. We see Oliver fighting his counterpart on the rooftop of a car. We see Kara go to the Wave Rider and engage her counterpart in such an awesome way. It was basically a callback to the Superman 2 scene where Christopher Reeves flies in front of the Daily Planet, folds his arms and floats and says, "General, get her, step outside." So they do that exact same thing as they've always been doing in the Supergirl show, which is, um, respectfully recycling certain Superman material that we've seen either in the movies or previous series. So that was a brilliant scene to see. Of course, this now is the beginning of a spectacular area battle that we see between those two characters, that finally ends in the Supergirl X, or Overgirl, finally dying because of the immense amount of solar radiation that she's absorbed into her heart. And her death is very similar to Superman's death at the end of the All-Star Superman comic book series, where he basically suffered the same problem of having absorbed too much solar radiation, which slowly caused him to die. And he died basically in some sort of a brilliant explosion, but he did it inside the sun in order to repair it from the damage that Lex Luthor and Solaris had done. In any case, we see that happen, and then Supergirl gets basically knocked back from the explosion after she flies her away to safety and is caught on the ground by Citizen Steel. This of course was a brilliant episode. I mean, with everything that I've mentioned. But the end scene is the only criticism that I actually have for it. In that we now finally see Barry and Iris finally getting married, by actually asking Diggle, who apparently is ordained, to perform the ceremony. And just as he's about to say, "You may now kiss the bride," Oliver and Felicity also decide to get married. Now, as far as story, I understand that it kind of does close the story arc in that the entire crossover started off with Barry and Iris's wedding, and also Felicity refusing to marry Oliver as well. And it now ends in not only Barry and Iris finally getting married, but Felicity and Oliver getting married as well. So it's great, but I would have maybe elected to rather go for some sort of a foreshadowing cliffhanger of a scene, in that either maybe teases Black Lightning, an upcoming CW DC Comics show, or perhaps a upcoming villain for a further crossover next year, or maybe some impending doom in one of the shows within this season. But I guess they went for the option that made the most sense as far as closing the story is concerned. So with that concludes my review for the episode. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think this crossover was a lot better than last year's crossover, in that the villains were better, they were more compelling. They were villains that actually struck a chord more to our main superheroes, because I mean, it was other versions of themselves. So not only are they fighting an enemy, the battle becomes a lot more philosophical as well, in that you're sort of dealing with your darker half kind of thing. And the action sequences were played up so nicely. The crossover itself was its own self-contained story, and all of the episodes this time around were like completely involved and absorbed in that story. There was no need for shows to wrap up their own like first half of the season type thing. I mean, one would expect that to be done, but they actually did away with that, and it worked beautifully. Because we were treated to basically a 2-hour long movie, but on the CW. So yeah, man, it was great. The visual effects were brilliant. The fight choreography was dope. The multiple layered character stories that were going in within the main story arc were also great. We see Alex and Sarah also closing off their arc. We also see Oliver and Felicity obviously closing off their arc. We see Firestorm and Jax having to deal with now burying Professor Stein and helping his family do that, and being the ones who have to actually tell them that he passed away. So yeah, look, it had everything. This crossover, it had the emotional stuff, it had the visuals, it had action. It actually showcased all the characters in a nice way, not just in terms of their powers, but in terms of character growth as well. So I give this episode 5 Wave Riders out of 5. And that concludes my review. So post your comments below, comment freely, let me know what you thought of this episode. If you enjoyed this video, please click on the thumbs up icon and leave us a like. And if you'd like to see more from Nth-Level Entertainment, please click on subscribe and click on the bell icon so that you are notified every time we drop new content on the channel. Otherwise, I've been Z the Entertainer. Thank you very much for watching the video. And as usual, stay awesome, people. Take care of each other to infinity and beyond. Turn these zeros into tens and commas. Bitch, I'm ballin', closing million.